Hey friends, Jeff here with mixpractice.com and missionmusician.com. Have another 31 mix tips in 31 days tutorial coming at you. So let's dive in. Okay, so today I want to talk about vocal chains. So what is a vocal chain? Well, all it really is the processing that you have on your vocal track. So if you have an EQ and a compressor, that is your vocal chain. Pretty simple. So I get a lot of questions about what should I use on my vocal? Does it matter what type of EQ? Does it matter what type of compressor? And I'll answer yes, it does matter. But what I mean by that is, if you take a stock EQ and a stock compressor and put it on your vocal, you will get a clean vocal sound. You will be able to process your vocal nicely. If you take a Neve emulation EQ and maybe an LA2A emulation compressor, you will get a colored vocal sound. It'll have either some more warmth or some more vibe or some mid-range presence, some upper mids presence. So to ask, will it sound the same if I use a stock compressor and stock EQ compared to using some kind of emulation EQ and compressor? No, it will not sound the same. But that doesn't make it wrong to use, right? So use what you have. You don't have to go out and buy, expensive plugins to make a great sounding record. I'm getting a little off track here. My intent was to talk about vocal chains. So there's different philosophies when it comes to vocal chains, and I'm not going to go into a lot of them. I'm just going to go into kind of my philosophy. And the way I think about it is, I like to use EQ before compression because I don't want the low end of the vocal to be triggering the compressor, causing it to compress more. So I like to compress or EQ before I compress. Okay, so that's how I think of processing my vocal. And then other things that I think about when I'm thinking about my vocal chain is, do I want to add some kind of tape emulation? Do I want to add some kind of preamp emulation? Do I want to add some kind of console emulation? And depending on the song, I may or may not want to do that. I tend to find a lot of times that a sparser mix doesn't require as much processing as a very dense mix with a lot of tracks. Another thing to consider, excuse me, I had an interruption. Sorry about that. Another thing to consider is, do I want just one plugin doing all of the work for compression? Do I want just one plugin doing all the EQ moves? And generally, I do not. I like to split it up. I don't want one processor doing too much, so I kind of like to split it up. And as a result, you can see your chain can get pretty long by doing something like that. But there's nothing wrong with using just a stock EQ and a stock compressor to process a vocal. And you'll also find that the more stuff you throw on, if you do it rather heavy-handedly, your vocal will sound way more processed. And that may be a desired effect, like in pop music where vocal is really processed to death. But if you're, a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar and just a vocal, you don't want a ton of processing on that. So anyway, I'm going to have to break this up into two different parts. Today, let's just get through these three first, and tomorrow we'll get to these other three. All right, so the most basic, simplest form of an EQ chain is the first two here. One is just an EQ and a compressor. So let me pull these up here. All right, let me pull the compressor up. And let's listen to what this does. All right, so I'll bypass them, and then I'll bring them in.
Summer life, good friends and good times.
All right, let's bring them in.
Summer life, good friends and good times. With a warm water punchline. Crack a joke, laugh out loud with a smile.
All right, so the EQ is opening up the top end and giving it some warmth. The compressor is evening out the vocal performance. All right, quickly, let's jump to the next one. This is just a channel strip. So what is a channel strip? Well, all it is a plugin that has multiple processes in it. So this has an EQ, a compressor, also has a gate if you want to use a gate. So again, I've just added some presence to the vocal and some air, and I've added a little warmth. In this case, this isn't a typical move for me, adding some low mids in a vocal. I'm normally cutting them out, but this vocal was so thin that I felt like it needed something in the low mids. All right, so let's listen to this.
Summer life, good friends and good times.
All right, with it on.
Summer life, good friends and good times. With a warm water punchline.
All right, so the compressor is evening out the vocal, and again, the EQ is bringing some presence and some air and some warmth. All right, let's move on to another vocal chain. So this is just this same EQ, this same compressor moved over to this track, and then I put on a de-esser. All right, so let's open these up here really quick. Trying to rush through this. All right, here we go. All right, so a de-esser does exactly what it says it is. It takes the S's out. Well, it doesn't take them out. It lowers the amplitude of them. It brings down the volume. So this is a common practice to put a de-esser on a vocal, right? You want to get as much brightness out of the vocal, but in doing so, you tend to emphasize the S's or the T's or the hard consonants. So what this does is it's kind of a section, if you will, of a multi-band compressor. So it just compresses a certain frequency range. Okay, it doesn't compress the whole signal. It just compresses, an area. Let me pull this in. An area right here in this EQ, so it'll bring the volume of that down. So let's see what this does without it, and then I'll bring it in.
Summer life, good friends and good times.
All right, let's bring it in.
Summer life, good friends and good times.
So you can see what it's reacting to. Summer life, good friends it's reacting to. So let's listen one more time.
Summer life, good friends.
So that summer is kind of harsh, kind of sticks out. So let's turn on the compressor.
Summer life
really tames it down, right? Before.
Summer life.
After.
Summer life, good friends and good times.
Okay, so that's it for part one. I didn't plan on this being 2 parts, but we're almost at 9 minutes, for crying out loud. All right, so if you like these videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow with part 2 of vocal chains. All right, looking forward to it. Take care. Bye-bye.